When you join ASUG, you'll never face an SAP challenge alone again. We connect our members to exclusive educational opportunities and a community of like-minded peers, so you can get the most value from your SAP investment. Get smart fast and learn from the best. Stay on the leading edge of SAP practices and get access to the latest research, insights, and unbiased editorial and interviews from industry experts and your peers. Expand your network. ASUG makes up the biggest, most diverse, and most engaged SAP user group in the world. Any question or challenge you have, there's someone who's seen it before. Connect with a network of 130,000 plus SAP savvy professionals to solve complex business challenges, work smarter, and expand your SAP skills. Get set to lead. Improve your SAP expertise by collaborating with peers to solve business challenges and find innovative solutions. With 38 regional chapters, you and your teams can connect and meet with other SAP professionals and take advantage of dozens of speaking and leadership opportunities throughout the year where you can share your ideas. Become a leader in the ASUG community by leading a local chapter, joining our executive exchange, and participating in one of our 13 and growing ASUG Alliance groups, or make connections and learn at ASUG events. Keep learning, connecting, and growing with ASUG.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Marissa Gilbert, Research Director at ASUG, and I just want to thank you for taking the time out today. Just a few housekeeping things before we jump in with my two fantastic guests today from smartShift. This session will be recorded, and you will receive the recording via email tomorrow, along with the post-session survey. So please take that and provide your feedback about our session today. Throughout the session, if you have any questions, any comments, any perspectives that you want to share, please drop those in the Q&A box below, and we will answer those at the end of the session as we work through all of our information and content today. So as I mentioned, I'm the research director here today. I've worked with smartShift for several years now. We've conducted custom research, really diving into custom code and really the challenges that SAP customers have. But I'm really excited today to have Derek Oates, CEO at smartShift, and Jagdish Saraharabadi. Did I do that right? Correct me.
Almost.
No, almost. CTO of smartShift. But I'll let you guys both do your own introductions. I'm sure I could really hype you up, but I'll let you take care of that. So Derek, why don't you kick it off?
Thanks, Marissa. Appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here. This is one I've been looking forward to for a long time. I'm Derek Oates. I'm the CEO of smartShift. I've been with the company for a little over 4 years now, but certainly not new to smartShift. I've been referring customers and partners to smartShift since 2013. Former SAP, former SNP as well, and actually former IBM. So I've been in this migration space, and if you want to call it barriers to digital transformation space, for a long time now. So I've got a unique opinion and view on many things that are across that realm. Really excited to have Jagdish join us. Jagdish is our CTO that recently joined us from SAP, where I think, Jag, you were there for 25 years, upwards of that. And I'll turn it over to Jagdish to do his introduction.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Marissa. Thanks, Derek. So excited to be here at smartShift. I just completed my 3 months here. After a very long stint at SAP, starting from 1996, through various roles, starting from consulting. My last role at SAP was that of a field partner CTO. And what I got to explore, in that role for a good 7 years is working with a lot of system integrators, independent software vendors on how they form the ecosystem around SAP, right? And, one of the topmost learnings I have is that SAP is fantastic at laying out a broad market strategy, right? I mean, their research, their product, their ideas and all that, I think lay out the ground for like the next 10 years of innovation. What the ecosystem's job is to do, though, is to kind of connect it to how customers want to consume that innovation. Mm-hmm. Because SAP doesn't lay out a plan for every customer and every industry. It's not practically possible for them. So while that strategy is fantastic, how do customers actually identify what's the value add for them? What is a priority for them? What do they do first? And all of that job is really up to the partner ecosystem. And everybody was solving like SaaS application topics and data topics and all that, but leaving aside the complex topic of custom code like untouched, like, we don't want to deal with that, right? And that's when we connected with smartShift, I'm like, okay, well, this is the problem to solve. This is not a problem to be dismissed. And I'm just so excited to be here at smartShift now.
That was a fantastic overview, Jagdish. And I think I'm really excited today too. And I feel like the weather's changing. We're hitting fall. I cut my hair, so now I need to get a new profile picture here. But I feel like we have a big audience that are excited to better understand how Clean Core, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges in the new year world as we've identified here in this session. So let's jump in. On to our next slide. There we go. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, Jagdish, obviously. What is SAP Clean Core? How does SAP refer to it? But really then how do we as SAP customers, how can we better understand it?
Yeah. So I'm just going to tell you some of, my own personal experience. My first job when I just joined, I said 1996, was with a very large customer in the high-tech industry in the West Coast, in the US West Coast, right? And I was a consultant. I was an ABAP consultant, a workflow consultant. And the customer had just signed the contract, right? And of course, during the sales process, like, standard software, everything should work out of the box. Brilliant, right? Now, when it comes to implementation, though, the business requirements start coming in. Very specific industry requirements, regulatory requirements, and all of that. And that's when me and my team, all of us, SAP employees, by the way, were kind of brought into the project. And that's when things started to happen with regards to changes, right? So the first thing is the quote to cash process. Well, the business said, well, we don't agree with this quote to cash process. We want a little bit of change here. All right, well, Jagdish comes in and adds a little bit of code there, right? Then we say, well, okay, the database tables are fantastic, but we need like 50 more fields. Like, it doesn't satisfy our requirements. Well, again, Jagdish comes in and adds fields to standard SAP tables, right? And it goes on and on and on with BAPIs and interfaces and all of those kind of things. Well, lo and behold, what I had just done was participate in what we are now calling an unclean core. I was part of a team that changed standard SAP delivered data, processes, interfaces, and all of that, making the code unclean, which means when the next upgrade comes in, somebody will have to take care of all these enhancements that were done. And by the way, I was not doing this, or we were not doing this on like, this is what we think. We were following SAP-defined development guidelines. We were following SAP-defined procedures. SAP told us like, okay, well, here's a user exit. We'll go there and update whatever you want to update. That was the prescribed methodology, right? So it was all done perfectly. Now, what happens is that I moved on to another job, but over time, this code started accumulating. And now you kind of multiply that with millions of lines, millions of stuff over 20 years, and you have a big, messy spaghetti code kind of a situation where you have now that is the unclean core. So the core refers to the standard stuff. And over time, due to business requirements and due to business needs, the core has become unclean. So the job now is to really, in an effort to innovate in the future, in an effort to kind of, have this code secure, more performant, more open to adding new requirements, has to go through a transition of going from like unclean to a clean core, meaning make it as standard as possible. And you can't do it all in one day, but you have to kind of start on the journey and then grow from an unclean state to a clean state, right? So that you can draw more value out of it, you can innovate further on it. So it's like karma for me, right? I made a mess, and now smartShift gives me a job to go and fix the problem now.
Sounds like that was strategic. You've been laying that foundation for many years. I'm a researcher, not in the deep of the technical aspects of things, but I kind of think of this sometimes like a house. and you have all the things in your house and you need to keep some of them. Like you need your refrigerator, it keeps your food cold. But maybe I don't need to keep all my kids' artwork, right? That's what I think about when I'm trying to wrap my head around Clean Core. I kind of like equate it to my house and what's necessary and what's not necessary, right? But a lot of customers need their custom code. Some of it can't, be stored away or put to rest. So, how do customers then, keep that, or how is it, how do they modernize it perhaps?
Yeah, look, I think, let me make a statement here, which might be a little bit bold, but there is no ERP without custom code, period. Custom code has always been there. Custom code will always be there, right? The way it has to be developed and managed, those architectural techniques have changed. Custom code's existence is not being questioned. So I think, we see a lot of blogs and stuff saying, well, custom code is, a liability. Like we don't need custom code. Well, this is the same custom code that has served the business for the last couple of decades. And now just because we are moving to the cloud, we suddenly say, well, get rid of it, right? It's not. It's a complex beast. It has to be handled with care. It is absolutely needed. There is no such thing as a standard software at such a complexity, global, multiple industries, that one standard software can solve every single business requirement. It's just not possible. Whether you look at sub-verticals, industry requirements, regulatory requirements, and fundamentally business requirements. I mean, I firmly believe that our customers innovate in their industry faster than us as software vendors. They have their ears to the ground on what is happening. They want to differentiate their supply chains. They want to differentiate their customer service. They know what innovation really means because it is for them a differentiator to lead in their industry pack. So if they want to innovate faster and the standard software is not kind of coming and matching their requirements, what is the way for them to solve the problem is to develop custom code. So nobody should question the existence of custom code. Customers have, spent a lot of money, a lot of resources. There are teams that actually look at business requirements, solve it, and all that. It is definitely an asset. It is definitely something that we have to take care of, manage, modernize over time. I think the issue has been that nobody has looked at this problem as a regularly updating problem. I think the people have accumulated all this for like 2 decades plus. And so now it is coming up as it's a huge problem. But had it been regularly touched, and smartShift's been around for 15 plus years now, right? Giving the same message, by the way. The message has not changed. Continuously, regularly maintaining it. But at least we can now do this in the future so that we don't have a problem of like accumulated technical debt, lacking innovation for the next 15, 20 years, right? So now is the time to start. Custom code is not going away. So, it's best to address these problems. Big problems cannot be dismissed, right? They have to be addressed. They have to be, you have to take care of them. So, Derek, what do you think?
Yeah, let me just add one thing there. I think, it's not just specific to the code either, Marissa. It's every element of what you've got highlighted as an element to Clean Core, whether or not it's integration, interfaces, data, all of it. If we leave any of it unmanaged without a proper foundation of maintenance and actually clean up, you're going to end up, regardless of what silo you're talking about, you're going to end up with a problem because anything unmanaged for a long period of time where you have, unfortunately, as Jagdish said, developers leave and go from job to job, data folks leave and go from job to job. The complexity of that environment is difficult without the right process from an overall management perspective. So I think that's where I look at all this, having been in this migration space, which again, it's funny because migration typically means from A to B. Being in these discussions with customers and partners and SAP over the last 15, 16 years specific to all of this, hearing all of the pain points, they're all the same. It's just nobody's on the same page with an approach to actually summarize, how do we actually do this? How do we actually put in place a continuous thing, right? The other thing I would say is Clean Core, right? Regardless of data code, it's not a static destination final. It's always going to be dynamic. Once you get there, you're never going to wake up as a customer one morning and say, oh, Nirvana, we're at Clean Core, we're good to go, we can now put it to bed, we're done. It's never going to be that way. And that's why you have to look at things a little bit differently and make sure that you actually have that process in place to have it be a continuous cycle so that you can stay as clean as possible and have checks and balances to make sure that you're on that path. And we can talk about why that's important down the road for sure.
Yeah, and I know you guys kind of already said this. It's critical. It's important. You talked about migrations. Obviously, S4 is the big migration that a lot of SAP customers, ASUG members are focused on. And I hear a lot about, going greenfield or brownfield. How does custom code and really the Clean Core play into that? I feel like sometimes when I talk to customers, we're going greenfield because we just need to start all over, or we're going brownfield to be more efficient. We have all this custom code. Does it matter? Can you still keep a clean core no matter what method you go?
No, and let me hit that, and Jagdish, of course, you can hit it as well. I think the reality is the color game doesn't really matter, and here's the reason why. I don't think, so yes, there are certain customers that will look at greenfield, brand new implementations that are new, that might be smaller, that are fresh, right? A lot of the customers now that have not made the migration move to S4 or that have done some in some sidecar scenarios, they're ones that are looking for not a technical lift and shift, but that's clearly part of it. But then they want to be selective in what they can actually bring across. My point is this, even around the definition of greenfield, there's definitely misconceptions of what a greenfield is. I had a partner try and tell me, hey, look, this is a greenfield scenario. And I'm saying, no, it's not, because they still want to bring some of their custom code. Of course, they want to decommission some of it, which they should for sure. But if they're bringing some custom code and they're bringing some data across, just because you think their goal is to get a global centralized template, that's not a greenfield scenario, right? So the answer to your question is it really doesn't matter. It comes down to really one simple thing. Are they looking to bring anything with them at all? And if the answer is no, then yes, it's a greenfield, net new type of deployment. But if they're looking to bring anything from any of these elements over into the new environment, then it's definitely not a greenfield. Jagdish, I don't know what your thoughts are, but that's...
Exactly, to the point. There is they will need to carry along their development, well thought through development that they've done for decades over to any kind of a project. It's like, look, greenfield and brownfield refer to the way they would implement SAP. But what has not changed is that their business requirements have evolved, and their business requirements have not changed. So ultimately, the gap between what a standard software has to offer, the processes, the flexibility has to offer, and the business requirements, the gap does not change. And this gap is fulfilled with extensions, with custom code. Now, what will change, though, is the way you implemented these extensions 2 decades ago versus the way you would implement now in your updated greenfield model, that will change. So again, the focus is on the unclean versus clean. It's not about the need for custom code. It's about the way you deploy that custom code. You deploy it on the periphery, you deploy it loosely coupled so that upgrades can happen properly, so that future business requirements can be much more easier. All of that kind of stuff. The other thing is, when you are in a brownfield or a greenfield project, this is the opportunity to check whether do you need all that code or not. Like, you have accumulated so much stuff, you don't even know, like new business requirement comes in. Are you just repeating that development again and again and again? Like, you don't even know what you have. It's such a, like I said, a spaghetti, ball. So it is time to streamline stuff, simplify stuff, and then take what you want in the future, because otherwise that technical debt will just keep accumulating. And so again, it's not about greenfield or brownfield. It is how do you manage that, that custom code and carry it in the future in a more modern architectural concept.
Perfect. That helps a lot. That definitely clarified my color issue. I think that's great. I threw up a poll question on the screen. I would love for our attendees to take, so we can maybe address too. Where are you with getting started with Clean Core? Sort of what's the status at your organization? If you could fill that out really quickly, then we can switch to the next slide. We can show those results. And then we're going to jump into as well how or who helps you with your Clean Core. Obviously, how can smartShift help you, but other ways too that organizations can be helped. But let's first see those poll results. Hopefully, y'all had enough time. You did. Perfect. no plan or investments yet. We need more education. So you are in the right place today. 57% of our session attendees here mentioned that. Otherwise, some ideas around it. We have a plan. You need some more time to formalize. You need some more help to formalize. But there is 14%, or if we add that up, almost 20% that, or excuse me, 5% that have a good plan but no funding. We need help gaining agreement for investing, and then 14% that plan on funding in place and could use a partner to help us execute. So certainly still in a lot of exploration stages here. Let's move on to the next slide, though. Oh, did I go too fast? Nope, I didn't. So here actually comes from our research that we collaborated on this year. This outlines here, what or why your organization needs custom code. The top mentions, and this is the comparison of the data year over year. Industry specifics are not covered by SAP standard. You both already touched on that a little bit when we were talking about why Clean Core, but it's necessary to connect systems. We talked about that in integrations, reporting analytics requirements of the business, and then it's necessary to regulatory requirements are sort of falling at the top there. But Derek, let me turn it over to you. Again, who helps customers, and how can we help them better understand Clean Core and make the move?
Sure. So as I said, I think initially in the intro, I've been referring customers and partners to smartShift since 2013. And the reason why was because even back then, when it was really just focused more on Unicode conversions and making Unicode conversions and automations, making the conversions faster through automation, I could never find dissatisfied customers and partners. Anybody that I referred to smartShift would tell me they literally took the custom code completely off the table. They did it a lot faster. They did it with higher quality, and literally just took a major problem area for us right off the table. And so, you see that pattern, and it's a unique thing where happy people, happy customers, happy partners, which is why I continuously would refer customers to smartShift, which obviously now, 11 years later, I'm here at the company. It just made a lot of sense from that perspective for me. The biggest reason I think why customers use smartShift and how we help customers is definitely through the automation component. Now we're automating upwards of 95% of custom code remediation for S4. That's a critical thing, right? Especially in this world of the resource crunch where everybody has limited resources available from a development standpoint. The more and more you can do with automation is obviously very, very critical. Another key component of how smartShift helps from a code standpoint is the dual maintenance piece, right? Where you're going to have customers that have longer roadmaps to get to S4, or they're going to have the ability or the need to run dual environments. So they need to make sure that they're using software as much as possible to automate that actual process, because a lot of customers don't have the ability just to throw more manual developers at it to keep the environments in sync, right? The other side to it is when you go through these transformations, even if it is from a custom code standpoint only, you can't be in a situation where the business stagnates because you have technical limitations on your capability to actually move forward to S4. And what dual maintenance does by leveraging the software and the automation capabilities, it allows you to really minimize the code freeze potential that you have. It's not like the business requirements from the business stop coming in just because you've got a technical transformation moving over to S4. And then, of course, the modernization, right? Companies, why modernize, right? Companies are really trying to get into a position where they can effectively say that they are attacking their technical debt. The report from the Wall Street Journal months ago highlighted how strong and how much that technical debt was costing companies. And since then, and obviously before that, there's been a lot of businesses that are looking for ways to actually attack that. The other side, and I think Jagdish mentioned it, if you're able to modernize your applications, you're able to deliver innovation faster. You're able to make your upgrades a lot less painful for the customer. I mean, that's one of the significant reasons that customers come to us to help them specifically with the custom code conundrum. There's many other things from an other partner perspective, as we mentioned, with regards to the core, the data elements, the business process. The one critical thing you see at the center of all that, without a doubt, is automation. Automation is sprouting everywhere, and that's critical.
Fantastic. And you touched a little bit on other partners, relationship with SAP. How does that all sort of factor in as well?
Yeah, so I mean, look, Jagdish and I are both former SAP, so we have a lot of deep relationships there at the executive level because we've seen quite a bit of things throughout the years. We're tied in very closely strategically with SAP. We're doing a lot of collaboration with the Cloud Application Lifecycle Management Group. We're doing a lot of work across all of the industries. We're helping educate folks from a RISE perspective, which is obviously critical to SAP and a lot of customers. Yeah, we're really plugged in nicely across the realm. Actually, I'm going to Waldorf next week to meet up with some of the folks from the Column Group. Yeah, we're working very closely together to make sure that not only our message is right, but how we get to execute and help customers more in mass scale.
Right, right. And if I may just add, so, you know, us working with SAP is only going to help customers because, you know, integrating the products in, you know, in the back end and kind of having a, you know, consistent solution for the custom code topic, the end beneficiary is the customer, because when you get cloud application lifecycle management, then the custom code topic will be solved because of the partnership with smartShift, right? So we are, you know, we are working closely with that group. The other point really quickly is manual is not the way to solve this problem. This is a very, very difficult problem to solve, right? So, you know, unless it is standardized, unless some automation technology is really going deeper into the, you know, associations of the different data and the different code and, you know, all that, and trying to remediate it, transform it, you know, manual is not only scalable, it's actually going to make the problem bigger, right? So you're not solving anything manually in this type of a problem.
Absolutely.
And one additional comment there was that you asked about other partners. I get asked quite a bit because of my background. What are your opinion on the data partners? What's your opinion on the business process? The one thing that I always come back to is I feel most comfortable referring customers to companies that I know have legitimate automation strategies, right? That's the thing, because that's how, in my mind, if I were on the other side of the fence and I was, you know, a customer that was responsible for deliverables, I'm looking to drive quality, I'm looking to drive efficiency, and I'm looking for guaranteed outcomes. And that's the biggest thing, right? That's one thing I didn't mention is the guaranteed outcome is big, right? Like there's a lot of effective views that have been taken in the past about consulting and more of time and materials and resources. But when you can put a rubber stamp on something and know that you're leveraging automation and the quality is going to be there, it's really important across all those different variables that make up the Clean Core.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point there. And I think that was great touching on it. It's not, you know, there are a lot of steps along the way, right, to get to there, but let's double click on smartShift's approach to custom code. Let's go in a little deeper here. I know this is always questions. We get a lot of questions when we share the research. People want to know more and really get into the nitty gritty here. So Jagdish, I'll turn this over to you. How really does smartShift do this for customers?
Yeah, look, so, you know, as we said before, this is a spaghetti ball that nobody knows where to start and where to touch, right? And the biggest danger in all this is, you know, you poke somewhere in this ball and you know, you don't want a domino effect to have like the whole thing kind of collapses and you know, things don't work later on. And that's the thing with the manual approach. That's also the thing with, you know, upstart, like, oh, generative AI can do this like tomorrow and all that. No, this has to be time-tested, right? Critical, time-tested, repetitive, standardized methodology. So the smartShift methodology basically starts with a Clean Core X-ray, right? What you need to start with is Clean Core X-ray. Stage one of the Clean Core X-ray says, let's understand the entirety of your custom code. So how do we understand the entirety of a custom code? Well, you list every single object and explain what that object is doing. Like, what's your inventory? You know, is this a report? Is this an interface? Is this, you know, an enhancement? And all the different types of your ABAP constructs, you list it entirely. The inventory list can be used to do like, you know, scope and gap analysis for your greenfield project, brownfield project. It's impossible or extremely hard to even get such an inventory list, by the way. So that is a place to start. Then you also want to do like, you know, application associations, like you don't want to say these 1,000 objects are in the finance module, the sales module, because sometimes an implementation goes module by module. And so you don't want to kind of tackle the entirety of the millions of lines of code. You want to kind of separate it out. And that's where the application component classification that we do as part of Clean Core X-ray comes in. So understand the entirety of code using all these different types of reports and inventory lists and classifications and usage analysis, like how long have you used this code? All of that statistics is stage one, right? And then on that basis, you start looking at a target architecture. You say, well, if this is my state, right, how do I look at a target architecture? What do I want to do, right? So the first thing you want to do is to get rid of stuff that you're not using. Can I get rid of the stuff which is going to affect something else? So we give you all those kind of rules and stuff saying, well, you can get rid of this, you should not get rid of that, you should remediate that, you should transform that, modernize that. How do you actually do it becomes the target architecture. And then finally, it's the realization and kind of the detailed analysis phase where you say, okay, well, I have identified that certain custom fields, remember the database fields that I added in my consulting job? Well, that is no longer a clean core concept, right? Because that is bad way of doing things. So now SAP has come up with key user extensions, which is the right way of doing it. So then you engage smartShift and we say, okay, well, these fields, added custom, move it to your proper way of doing key user extensions. And we do those transformations for you, right? So, and there's a whole set of such transformations that become your stage 3. So again, understand what you have using various techniques, define your target architecture, and then go into a detailed analysis with actual realization phases. It's a laid out methodology, time tested. A lot of customers have started with step 1, some have gone to step 2. And we just keep on repeating this for multiple customers globally.
So I actually would love maybe a little customer story. I think that can always help really maybe bring some color to this. I will say we in the Q&As, which we are going to get to all of your Q&As here in just a little bit. We didn't get a question, but we did get a shout out from one of your customers. I will not name drop them, but they said they went live successfully with their migration from ECC to S/4HANA a couple months ago with a lot of work done by smartShift, as well as SAP and other partners. As we've talked about, it's certainly not, you guys are not going at it alone. Everyone is working together on this. But I think, tell me a customer story here, maybe a recent example of maybe how a customer goes through this process.
Yeah, so, again, I can, obviously not name the customer, but a very, very large customer of SAP globally, one of the most complex environments, and really, the customer, went along on this journey with us, in a consultative style, workshop style, helped us a lot, actually. We brought to the table a significant amount of data and analysis and X-ray, like I mentioned. The thing is, there were no other ways for the customer to get to that analysis. That's the thing that smartShift brought to the table. Once we had the data laid out, once we made those associations, those insights, that's where, the brain started ticking. And then everybody kind of jumps in saying, oh, now I can do this, now I can do that, right? Mm-hmm. So usage analysis, application analysis, component analysis is what we went on, with this customer. And then in the workshops, people really identified saying, okay, well, I want to change like I said before, my custom fields to the key user extensions. Okay, well, let's identify that now as a tangible project. The other project that were identified was some of the user interface updates that were done a long time ago. Like, oh, we have changed, a variety of transactions in the older user interface that SAP has, added fields, added stuff. We want to go to a modern UI architecture. So how do we actually do it, right? So again, there as well, no place to start. Like, how do you even assess the value of doing something like that? What's going to be the effort? How are you going to do it? Again, smartShift comes to help, because when we pull out that data from the system and we analyze and we associate that, we say, okay, well, this is your older UI. These are all the nuances of that. and this is your newer UI, and this is how it's going to map. And if you can do it for one, then you multiply it for all the older transactions you've done. Then there's also an example of moving tables, like how SAP is changing some of the tables, or not some, but pretty much every table to a CDS view, like a custom, data services view, right? And that is a huge transformation because you no longer access a table directly, you access a CDS view, and there's a lot of benefits that come with that. So that is another concept of the key user extensions. Well, another example of a transformation engine, we identify all the existing code and where those CDS transformations can be done in the Clean Core X-ray stage 1. You identify it in the target architecture as something that will be of value, right? Because if it's, again, not of value, and then we give a transformation engine to actually do that transformation, like scan the code, take all the table views, move them, replace them with CDS, and it should just work as it is. So there again, you've made the code a little bit more clean. So all these transformations that I'm talking about, as Derek said before, move you step by step in digestible small projects, more and more towards a more cleaner core. So those examples came from a customer, and there are many, many more such customers with different requirements. Now, some transformation engines may not be of value to certain customers, like API replacement, for example. All the custom APIs that customers have developed, moving them to SAP standard released APIs. One customer found it very valuable, the other did not, because SAP has not released all APIs. So we'll just need to keep watching what SAP releases in the future, and maybe such a transformation is of help to the customer down the line, so we can perform that transformation later. But yeah, again, analysis insights leading to actual transformations is Clean Core X-ray, and that's what we do with customers.
So honestly, the question I get often when I talk to ASAG members is how to get started. So what's first step? Step one, customers know they want to learn more about this. Obviously, step one was coming to our webinar. Maybe step two, when they get in touch with smartShift, what do they need to come to you with? Questions, a hello, how do they start?
Step one, Clean Core X-ray, understand your custom code. And at the minimum, what you can do is decommission unused code. Yeah. Step one, usage analysis, understand which applications, understand the risk with Clean Core X-ray, and at a minimum, decommissioning is what I would say every customer will find value with, because your transformations is really dependent on how you've built your custom code, what areas and whether. So that's a much more stage 2, stage 3 kind of deeper analysis. But decades of custom code, there is no doubt that you're carrying along and managing and investing in stuff that you don't even use, that you don't even need, that has been replaced with standard software, or that has been replaced with the business requirement going away, right? Variety of reasons. So understand your inventory, understand your usage, and then go into decommissioning, and then follow on to other mechanisms. So Derek, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say, it's interesting you bring up decommissioning, because Marissa, even with the S4 transformation and even with the Unicode conversions going all the way back in our history as a company, we've been doing the decommissioning process for all these customers forever. So you could make the argument, given that decommissioning the unused code, you would not believe it, but usually we see, when we look at a custom code repository, we're decommissioning up to 40 to 60% of the custom code because they're not even using it anymore, right? And so that's a key factor. And if you look at SAP's strategy with a lot of the stuff that they're talking about with the move to RISE, one of the things there's two things that they're specifically recommending. One is decommissioning, which we've been doing through automation for a long, long time. The second is that there must be a dual maintenance strategy. So customers that come to us, it's usually around, questions around how do we get really smart on our custom code when we've had turnover in the department, when we don't know who's done what, that kind of thing. How do we get more intelligent quick on this? And then what can we feel safe to actually delete and get rid of and really get that reduction of technical debt? But it usually starts with analysis. And then obviously from a Clean Core standpoint, the X-ray capability, because it's a little bit more detailed and driven down into the analysis as opposed to more top level. But yeah, I think that's probably the place to start for sure.
Actually, I'll just add one more point. I mean, this is all great once you are on S4, by the way, right? I think the first thing is to move from ECC to S4 because, that's the most fundamental modernization that you can do. And you can do the decommissioning as part of that movement. You can move into more, standard ABAP cloud syntax. So that's definitely the first move. And then you can gradually, so there's a one big step first, and then you start gradually taking things one by one by one. That's the graphic that I would draw. Like make the jump, move to S4, and then keep improvising in the future.
Big leap forward. But let's get to this decommissioned custom code that you were just talking about too, Derek. Quick poll question again for the audience. The first step for SAP Clean Core is to remove the unused objects. Has your organization safely decommissioned unused custom code yet? Tell us where you're at on this. I think that'd be a great discussion point too. But we have a ton of questions, which I am not surprised by. So I'm going to try and dig through these and maybe put them in a little order that would make sense. Stepping all the way back. So obviously, there's a lot of interest in Clean Core, but what percentage of Clean Core can actually be achieved? Is this even, are we talking 100%? Are we talking 40%? Or does it depend on the organization, most likely?
Yeah, let me take that first. So yeah, I mean, obviously it depends on the organization is because unlike an ECC to S4 transformation, which is, the objective is defined, the end state is defined, and you just, do it like Derek said with 95% automation, and it's just boom, one time big bang, right? Clean Core is, there's a lot of dependence on how you've built your custom code, what all have you done in there, like how many user exits do you have, how many APIs you've built custom, and that is why you can't really jump to remediation before you really understand what is the current state of your custom code and what have you done, right? But no, we have our analysis shows that you can easily in the first 1 year get up to 30-40%. I mean, you can run some transformation engines like we said, decommissioning, custom fields logic, and all that, and then pinpoint it gradually, moving up to whatever 60-70%. Now, there's no math around this. Is like I said, really depends, and also depends on the number of objects, number of lines of code. What do you want to achieve? And yeah, but hey, it is possible to get to 100% as well. I mean, but it has to be step by step. That's for sure.
And I guess sort of in that same vein, this again is probably varies by organization. How long does Clean Core take to complete? How long does the process take, whether with smartShift or for organizations?
And that's the thing. It's never going to be fully completed. That's the challenge, right? It's a concept. It's the truth, right? It's a concept that, yes, everybody would like to get back to standard as much as possible. Yes, everybody would like to clean up, their integrations and their interfaces and even properly documented interfaces. The challenge that you have is that the only way that you would actually get to where it's a static environment is if all the net new business requirements just ceased. You're not going to have that, right? So it differs from customer to customer, but there's definitely certain things that you can achieve in every customer from a Clean Core perspective. One funny anecdote quickly, I met with different customers over the last 15 plus years. You could go in front of a customer and they'll tell you, okay, we have this many documented interfaces. And then we would say, no, you know what, we actually ran our interface scanner and you actually have 300 more. And then the customer would say, nobody's leaving this room until we figure out where those 300 undocumented interfaces are. My point is, it's always going to be a dynamic type of thing. That's just the reality of it.
Absolutely. So, of course, we have a question about AI. If the trend is towards a Clean Core, is AI within the ERP considered custom code? The idea is to generate new use cases, and for that, we need access to functional models and development capabilities.
So AI within ERP is not custom code per se, but what you can do is you can use AI, generative AI, and natural language query against your custom code. And this is coming on smartShift's roadmap very soon, actually. So, you look at all this custom code, undocumented, sometimes you don't know what's there, right? Generative AI and having a question and answer kind of an interface to your custom code is the best way to understand what happens, right? Because look at this, right? It is not just about managing the existing code. What about the incoming business requirements? How do you know where are you going to insert your next business requirement solution? Are you going to develop it? Is it going to be a repeating thing, right? So all of those questions can be addressed with a generative AI interface, or it could be addressed using standard mechanisms as well. But no, definitely there is a play for generative AI in understanding and kind of doing the right next step from a governance perspective. But we don't see it in the actual migration. The migration is very precise, and you can't depend on probabilistic AI models to kind of solve the actual transformation issue, right? So yeah, we don't see the transformation itself happening anytime soon.
Another question more broadly about Clean Core. When it comes to Clean Core, could you please elaborate more on what is loosely coupled versus tightly coupled? Because this also changes the perspective on where you can be really clean or not. How to differentiate is the question.
That's a very good question. So, and it is at the heart of understanding what is Clean Core. So again, let's take an example, a very specific example. When in SAP's guided methodology, we use something called a user exit. Right? This is a placeholder that SAP had placed in their standard code saying, hey, if the customer wants to change anything, this is the place to do it, right? It's a user exit. That user exit methodology, where decades and decades people have inserted their code, is tightly coupled because it is tight with SAP standard code, right? Now what happens is you take that user exit and you move that code into a key user extension delivered framework. So the code still runs the same. It is just not part of the user exit. That is more of a loosely coupled architecture, because loosely coupled is something which is sitting on the periphery and it is not touching the standard, not touching the core. So your upgrades, your testing, all of that can be independent, and you can manage your custom code independently. So, and there are many, many examples of these, like even with custom fields, adding something directly to append structures in the database tables is tightly coupled, but moving them to flexible fields that are given as part of key user extension is loosely coupled. So, I think one way to look at it is unclean to clean, move from tightly coupled to loosely coupled. You're making the system cleaner and cleaner.
Perfect. And I think another question here, sort of in the same vein as tightly coupled and loosely coupled and terminology, what are the examples of functionality SAP views as inside versus outside the Clean Core?
SAP views as inside and outside the Clean
what are examples
Core.
of?
I think all the tightly coupled stuff SAP sees as something that is not the right way to do it. And so outside would be the loosely coupled scenarios. Now, loosely coupled can go much farther into, for those of you who have studied like cloud application programming, take it to BTP. But then that's when we go into, API availability and all much more complex topics. But I think if you want to keep it simple, having it inside SAP as tightly coupled, but moving it to the key user extension framework of SAP as loosely coupled, that's a very simple way to look at it, and that's the best way to gain value out of this. Like if customers just do that part, they will move that unclean to clean barometer like big time to a very high percentage, and then the rest, of course, can be tackled over time. But it's the same thing. Inside outside is the same as tightly coupled, loosely coupled.
Good. And you mentioned BTP, and we actually have a question on that as well. How does SmartShift employ SAP BTP capabilities?
So we use it today for kind of running some of our projects in terms of like remote RFC access and all that. But that is more as an infrastructural kind of mechanism. That's more inside SmartShift and what we are trying to do there with customer projects, right? We are, and we have it on our roadmap, we are evaluating how this tightly coupled to loosely coupled to really very loosely coupled, which would be BTP. How does that transformation work? Because at that point in time, you're not looking at this one object at a time, but you're looking at application re-architecture, like you're moving an entire application out to BTP. So there are many considerations there, which we are still trying to understand it, talking to customers. So we have some plans, for it, but there's nothing concrete that we do in terms of transformation there today.
That was a rapid fire for you, Jagdish. You handled that brilliantly. But let's go back to the poll question. I did not forget about it. I was waiting for a few more of you to respond. So let's take a quick look at those results and maybe have a little discussion around this as well. So the first step for SAP Clean Core is to remove unused objects where organizations or have organizations safely decommissioned that. No, 74% have not. So again, this is, which aligns with that first question. Everyone's still sort of in that exploration, trying to understand it stage. But as we talked about a little bit ago, first step is really starting to look at that, right? And what code to safely decommission. Any thoughts around this? Are you guys surprised by these numbers?
No, I'm not surprised. In fact, I know, Marissa, you were at the SAP Utility event in Miami a few weeks ago, and I had a handful of, two particular CIOs say to me, we're just not even comfortable because we don't know if what we're going to throw away is going to break things. And so, and I said to both of them, the good news is you're not alone. There's a lot of people that are in the exact same boat as you. And so I'm not surprised. I think that many customers still believe that the only way to really do it safely, if there is a way to do it safely, is just from a manual approach standpoint. And that's where, we can really help those customers because of the rules-based engine that we have and all the experience we have from the last 20 plus years delivering these all the way back to Unicode to, Suite on HANA to now S4, different versions of ECC, now different versions of HANA moving forward. We have a lot of expertise built into our software that really gives you the ultimate insurance card that you're not deleting stuff that's going to break. And that's super important to understand. So I'm not surprised because there's that hesitancy because I can relate to not wanting to delete something that you don't know what's going to happen. I get that.
Marissa, can I take one question here?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's a valid question that everybody will benefit from. So the question is, should we wait until S4 transformation is complete to run an X-ray on Clean Core? And I think there are aspects of X-ray that can be of super value even for your ECC to S4 transition. Like I mentioned before, an inventory list, entry point list of all the different objects that you have listed, like just listing them, understanding them for a fit scope gap analysis. Like some customers and partners are reaching out to smartShift saying, well, I want to do a scoping analysis for S4. How do I know what custom code has been developed? So how do I scope my S4 implementation project? There is no way to know. And so there are parts of X-ray that can benefit you there as well. And some customers are already doing this with us. But the majority of the transformations, all the key user and those transformations that we said, they really make sense and give the biggest value once you complete an S4 migration. Because from ECC to S4, you're doing a lot of modernization right there. So you would have become a little bit cleaner or maybe at least cleaned up a little bit of the code and moved it up to standard from a security perspective, performance perspective, and all that perspective. Big bang, S4. And then you start your Clean Core transformation. So, the answer is X-ray can be part of it, but we really recommend to leverage parts of X-ray, move to S4 first, and then start going on the Clean Core journey.
Perfect. That was a great question. And we do have a slide here where you can scan that QR code. Again, these slides will be shared out in their entirety, as well as the recording of the session at the end. We do have a few minutes left. I do have a couple more questions, but if anyone else that is listening has some last minute questions that they would like to ask these experts, please drop them in the Q&A. One question we got, again, this is more specific about smartShift. Are you looking for partners to implement smartShift at customers, or are you providing software and services? That's an easy answer for you guys.
Well, so there are parts of our inventory list and reports that I mentioned before that we are open to kind of working with partners so that they can take in. Some partners have already approached us, like if we work with like 10 customers. Can you give us the X-ray entry point report so we can work with the customers for a scoping and analysis and all that? But the transformation projects themselves, No, as of now, we intend to keep that in-house. We intend to kind of execute on those projects ourselves. There's a lot of pre-processing, post-processing, it's a very short window. It's a 4-week window, right? So to kind of have that automation done in those 4 weeks, right? We don't want those times to be kind of enlarged because, of skills or whatever. I think the market has an expectation that smartShift automation can now get done in 4 to 5 weeks. And we can achieve that with a business outcome-based delivery that is purely in our control. So as of now, no plans, but who knows in the future, right?
Maybe my ears hadn't perked up, but I don't know if I had heard that 4 weeks before. So you're saying that when you start the project and finish the project with a customer, you can do it in 4 weeks?
ECC to S4, correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, but it is less than 7 weeks for ever, right?
For sure. Yeah, that's the one thing that we've talked about too, is the speed and the agility. Specifically talking about the S4 transformation, our component, because of the high automation rates of what we do, it severely condenses the time required if you were, as opposed to taking manual resource approach. That's why when I say upwards of 90 to 95% of the automation done, it's literally like a washing machine. You take the unclean ECC code, run it through the smartShift washing machine, and then it spits out clean and optimized S4 code that then you can upload to the target system. Of course, customers and partners have different requirements from a testing standpoint. When our stuff goes through the washing machine, it comes out clean. We've won quality awards, all that stuff. We don't do the functional testing. We make sure that we're delivering guaranteed the clean code on the other side that works and it's optimized for SAP as it goes through the machine. All the rules and logic from our 250 something rules are applied to the actual code and it spits it out. But yes, we're able to do this very, very quickly and efficiently.
I think that's helpful. I think it's just helpful people to have a time frame in mind and just be able to wrap their heads around that. Sure. I think that's really helpful. We do have a couple more questions. This is maybe more specific. Our services business heavily uses SAP CRM for service orders, contracts, iBase, etc. How might SmartShift transform SAP CRM customization where the capabilities are being moved to S4?
Anything ABAP related. Anything that's going to be part of the ABAP stack. As long as it's ABAP, that's where SmartShift will play when it comes to transforming the actual code. As long as the base is ABAP, we go way back.
So we obviously talked a little bit about S4, but you talked more broadly about migration. Someone's question is, does SmartShift focus on SAP GTS, TM, or EWM? That was just a lot of letters, other than S4.
As long as it's, and Jack, please correct me, but as long as it's ABAP related, as long as the code base is ABAP standard form or ABAP form, we're good. It doesn't, we go across modules, industries. That's the other big benefit. Even industry specific, as long as it's ABAP, it's the same to us. Yeah.
So as far as my knowledge goes, GTS, Global Trade Services, right? Workforce management, or rather warehouse management, extended warehouse management, EWM, right? I'm just showing off here. And TM is transportation management. All of them are ABAP based. So no, that would not be an issue at all. So again, as Derek said, the best way to look at it is built on ABAP, built using ABAP. We will transform anything and everything, or transform as well as make clean over time. So. Perfect.
All right, well, we are about at time. I feel like I'm ready to wash some clothes, get them clean. After talking about throwing it through, I want some spaghetti, Jadish, after you've been talking about everything being sort of tangled into a spaghetti ball. So that's where my head is at. Probably not where our listeners' heads are at, hopefully. But Derek, Jadish, what sort of final thought? What do you want people really to walk away with? Obviously, for me, it's take the Clean Core X-ray analysis. What is it for you guys?
Let me take it first, Derek. You can have the last word. So definitely understand your custom code, but the first real step is to move to S4, right? I mean, that is your few weeks, big bang move, and then start your Clean Core journey as a follow-on, right? So that would be my recommendation. Work with SmartShift, understand your code, get on S4, and then move on to dual maintenance and along on the Clean Core journey. Simple.
And I would just say, given that SmartShift's been in this custom code space for a long time, and you could make the argument, that we're custom code / clean core pioneers, if you will. We've got a lot of years experience around the horn here with SAP, different partners, SNP. Jagdish and I are very well networked. We're happy to help, even if it's not in our domain of expertise, if you will. If it's something outside where we might be able to refer you to a partner that you're not working with or put you in contact with one of our customers. There's a common theme here that customers and partners see along this realm of digital transformation. And the more and more information we can share to help customers, the more and more we're happy to do so. So just reach out to us. We're happy to help in any way, and this has been great.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening in. Everything will be coming to you via email, all the recordings, slides, etc. Thanks everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.